So I've been just watching the video that I recorded recently about David Goggins, and I see that there is no video. There is only an audio, so yeah, that's fail number one. If you want to watch it or hear it, that's a better word. Feel free to hear it all the way to the end of this video, but unfortunately there is no video, so yeah, see ya. So I have read David Goggins' books over 10 times, and today I'm gonna describe to you the lessons I've learned, and we're gonna talk a little about these books. So the first books of his two books is called Can't Hurt Me. It was released in March 2020, just around the pandemics. This is the first book of David Goggins. In this book, there was a lot of information about his childhood, the beginnings, the Navy SEALs, and pull-up records, and also the first 100-miler. So actually, now I will present to you the chapters. Chapter 1, I Should Have Been a Statistic. This chapter talks about the complete beginnings, how people thought of him and his family versus how it really was. His father was an abusive person, and for sure David didn't have an easy childhood. If you can read the chapter in this book, you can really say he had a hard, tough childhood. The second chapter is called Truth Hurts. In this chapter there is a continuation of his childhood, but he is in higher grades. He starts to have problem with reading, speaking, writing in English. Also there is a brief story of his stepfather and how he got killed, unfortunately. The third chapter is called The Impossible Task. This chapter speaks about how David got into the Navy and how he passed the tests. He speaks about the struggles that came with passing these tests, because he had a learning disability, and it was tough for him to pass these tests and to get into the Navy. The fourth chapter, chapter 4, is called Taking Souls. This is my favorite chapter. In here there is the Hell Week is described. The Hell Week is obviously a week in the training of Navy SEALs, BUDS, so that is Basic Underwater Demolition SEALs. It is a week where you train and exercise and do tasks, perform tasks. You go into the cold ocean for 130 hours straight without sleeping. I cannot imagine how hard it must be to be in a Hell Week. And David Goggins himself was in 3 in 1 year. I admire him for that. I think he is a really tough beast, hard to kill. Chapter 5 is named Armored Mind. In chapter 5, the story continues still in the process of David Goggins becoming a SEAL, but basically everything after the Hell Week. So after the Hell Week, you've got a so-called Walk Week to recover from the Hell Week, and you just walk a lot and do other tasks. So that is the end of the first phase, basically, of BUDS training. There is first phase, which is physical, PT, physical training. The second phase is called, it basically has everything to do with water, underwater swimming, etc. And the third phase has to do with shooting, carrying your weapon, etc. So in the field. And after Hell Week you are at the finish of first phase. And chapter 5 of this book speaks about how David had problems with water, so phase 2. He had always struggled with swimming, and this chapter really breaks down how he endured the problems. Chapter 6 is called It's Not About a Trophy. In this chapter, David describes his first ultramarathon without any preparation. So he ran a race called San Diego 1 mile. When it is a track circuit, when you run 100 laps of a 1 mile circuit. He was a beast at that time. He had no physical endurance. He was a bodybuilder. He got into powerlifting, but he wanted to help the fallen SEALs and their families to raise some money. Also, he wanted to help the fallen SEALs and their families raise some money, but he wanted to raise the money running a race called Badwater 135. It is the toughest ultra run in the world, basically. And he wanted to run it without the preparation, but he had to run other 100-mile circuits and races in order to qualify for that race, the Badwater. And this chapter 6, it's not about the trophy, speaks about and talks about how was the race, basically. His first 100-mile race called San Diego 1 mile. Chapter 7 is called The Most Powerful Weapon. It starts with emailing the Badwater director Chris Kostman that he finished a 100-mile race needed to qualify for the Badwater. And it talks about enduring other races, preparation for Badwater, and actually running the Badwater. I really like this chapter. I think it's really powerful. Chapter 8 is called Talent Not Required. In this chapter, David writes about how he prepared and endured the bike race called Race Across the America. Chapter 9 is called Uncommon Amongst Uncommon. Chapter 9 is called Uncommon Amongst the Uncommon. Here David writes about how he got into the so-called. There's a section of army in the SEALs in the Navy in the US called Ranger School. It is a special force of SEALs, basically, for everyone who wants to be highly qualified. You can go there. I'm smiling reading the title of chapter 10 because it's called The Empowerment of Failure. I know this chapter really well because usually I will read this book often, like from cover to cover, but chapter 10 is about the pull-up record David wanted to break. He wanted to break the pull-up record 3 times. He failed 2 times, and for the 3rd time he broke it. It is really empowering chapter in my opinion. It's also like the third favorite chapter out of 11 total in this book. Here is basically everything described about the pull-up record, the preparation, about 3 pull-up records, the preparations for each one of them, and why did he fail 2 times, basically. He describes it, and it is a powerful chapter, I believe, because you can learn a lot from it. You need to learn that no matter how many times you fail, you can always get up and try again. At whatever you do in life, you can always get up and try again. Chapter 11 is called What If? Yes, with the question mark at the end. It is in this chapter it's described the problems of David because he was so tight. His muscles was so tight that he had basically health problems, like really bad health problems. He was lying in bed, the doctors didn't know what was happening to him, and he found stretching. That's why he says now that he is stretching every day for 2 hours, because once in his life he had problems so big that stretching basically saved his life. So that's the 11 chapters of Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins. I've got the chapters numbered because I'm reading this book so often. This first book, I would say, is like a raw Goggins. It is written in a way, the difference between the books is only 2 years, but this book, because of the childhood problems and enduring much more pain in the seals and in the races, this book is a raw version of Goggins, I believe. That's in my opinion only, because I've read this book like 4 times. You can learn a lot from it, and I would recommend it to everyone who wants to change their life. It's very inspiring to read. As I said, I've read it 4 times. It's one of the best books I've read, I believe. So that was the first book. The second book, the second book of David is called Never Finished. And in this book, as I said previously, the first book is like a raw version of David Goggins. There is much more pain in this book because he had to endure. In the first book, he endures a lot more because there is the seal, the childhood problems, then there are struggles with trying to even get into the seals, 3 hell weeks, multiple races, problems with stretching and his health, and also he covers heart surgeries in the first book. So anyways, the second book is called Never Finished, once again. I found this book, I like this book better than the first one. Also, I've read this book like 7 times, cover to cover. It was released in December 2022. And when I got this book for Christmas from my sister. And when I got this book, I said to myself, I'm gonna read it every month, once. And it started. It was December, January, February, March, April, May, June, July. Or until June, and like 8th time was anywhere in the year, in the next half of a year. This book, I really like this book. I read it so much, man. Okay, let's break it down. The chapter 1 is called Maximize Minimal Potential. It's called about, David writes in it, in this chapter, about how he was awarded the Veterans of Foreign War prestigious Americanism Award, and also about the struggles he had to endure to achieve this award, how his mother helped him. It is generally a flashback into the past of how his mother helped him a lot to basically get out of the house of his father and run away, try to live a normal life alone. Evolution number 1 talks about that we are focusing on the things that doesn't matter to us. You have been preoccupied by bullshit for way too long. It's time to switch your focus to the things that will slingshot you forward. We've got these distracting injuries that we constantly remind ourselves. And when we forget about them, then we will be able to slingshot ourselves forward and make progress in our lives. And chapter 2 is called Merry Fucking Christmas. This chapter describes the struggles of releasing of his book, but also health problems. He had to endure once again. Evolution number 2 is about the race across the America. He is flashing back to it. Also, I didn't use this evolution, let's say it. The evolution 2 is, David is writing about the mixtape. There is this famous clip of him saying that, that he speaks his insecurities into the recording device, and then he listens to it over and over again, either on the headphones, earphones, or full stereo. I've never done it. I can only believe it is a really powerful thing to do if you've got any insecurities. So evolution number 2, I would recommend to everyone who has some insecurities that he is struggling with. It's time to make your own mixtape. Chapter 3 is called The Mental Lab. And it's a flashback to... I just stumbled upon one of my favorite quotes from this book. When you are a full-time savage, it's a lifestyle. There is no want to, there is only must do. Basically, I've got all this book covered in a pencil. I've got it all circled up in pencil, my quotes, etc. Also with numbered pages and evolutions. So chapter 3 is about the Ironman, Kona Ironman, and the race called, let me get it to you. He was preparing for the race. Leadville. He was running a race called Leadville. So he writes in here about the struggles he had to prepare for it, and basically how he didn't want to actually run it. He was struggling with the decision, but in the end he accepted it and ran the race. Evolution number 3 starts with a quote, "Many dreams die while suffering." And in here he writes about his third Hell Week. So basically what he describes in here, that he describes that You can be anyone you want. You can have a perfect, successful life. You can be anyone, you can have everything, etc. But the 1 second when you quit in your mind can change your life. And that's why he is writing about the Hell Week. Because in Hell Week you've got 130 hours without sleep. And 1 second of this 130 hours, one second that you lose, your life changes and you quit. There are 86,400 seconds in a day. Losing just one of these seconds can change the outcome of your day and potentially your life. Chapter 4 is called A Savage Reborn. And I'm mistaken, actually chapter 4 is about running the Leadville race. Evolution number 4 is David describes in evolution number 4 that our insecurities are building mental walls around us. I believe it's completely true, because if you have some insecurity deep down, buried inside of you, it will hold you back until you can let it go. But until you let it go, when it's buried inside you very deeply, it will build some walls around you to block you from the outer life. And he describes in this evolution, that you need to break these walls to evolve in life. Have the courage and mental endurance to do whatever it takes to start knocking down those walls. You are the warden of your life. Don't forget, you hold the keys. Chapter 5 is called The Disciple of Discipline. And in the Disciple of Discipline, it starts about his mental breakdown after the Leadville race. Basically, after each and every ultra race David has completed, he is on the mental breakdown afterwards, and he just feels like shit, basically. Also, he describes in here how he arrived with his mother when he was young, how he arrived with his mother and brother at his grandparents' house, because when he was younger, he was living with his grandparents. That is a really good part of this chapter, to be honest. Evolution number 5 starts with a quote: "Your problems and your past aren't on anybody else's agenda." That's true. Like, when you speak too much to everyone about your problems, you're not resolving any of those problems. You're, I would say, strengthening them, because you don't do anything to resolve them and solve them. Continued growth only comes when you are willing to be humble. Chapter 6 is called The Art of Getting Hit in the Mouth. This chapter is, David describes that, and is the quote: "Our goals are only as elastic as our sense of self, of who we are and what we think we can accomplish." And in here he describes the thought process in his head that occurred after he finished the Leadville race. Because then he heard about the race Moab 240. It is a race in the wild, basically. I would say it's an adventure race, ultra miler, where you run for 240 miles. And you've got 110 hours to complete it. So in this chapter, David describes his first attempt of this race. How he got lost, he ran additional miles, and at the mile 200 he had to quit because of his health problems. But once those problems were solved, he came back and unofficially finished the race, running the rest 40 miles. Evolution 6 is starting with a quote: "Small minds and weak people kill big dreams. You might have clear goals and be working on yourself every day, but if you have the wrong folks around you, there is a good chance they could be sucking the life right out of you and making sure that you go nowhere." This evolution, David describes and writes about your foxhole, what he describes. And the foxhole is all about the people you have around you. And just as the quote stated, when you have wrong people around you, they will suck you down and make sure you get nowhere in life. There is an important lesson out of this evolution, because you really must think about who you have around you. When you have wrong people around you, they will literally bring you down. You will want to evolve and go into one direction, and they will simply pull you down. And you cannot go until you break the connection. Then you are free to go. That's the harsh truth of life. Chapter 7, my favorite chapter, called The Reckoning. Chapter 7 is about his second attempt at Moab 240, but also about the race across the Florida. There was this race that is fully self-run. There is no checkpoints, there is nothing, there is no crew. It's basically an unofficial race that you can run. I really like it. There is a lot of growth in there. Especially in the part when he is running the Moab 240 for the second time. I really like reading this part in this chapter. Evolution number 7. Who will you become and what do you want to stand for? Are you ready to be the standard? If you are willing, share your oath to self. In this chapter, David writes about oath to self. An oath to self is something David believes everyone should do. Just to know what you are chasing in life and to what rules you are holding on to. So for David, the oath to self is, quote, I live with a day one, week one mentality. This mentality is rooted in self-discipline, personal accountability, and humility. While most people stop when they're tired, I stop when I'm done. In a world where mediocrity is often the standard, my life's mission is to become uncommon amongst the uncommon. That's really powerful. Chapter 8, Play Until the Whistle. Play Until the Whistle is a description of David Goggins' knee problems. After running this almost 500 miles, he had a strong knee problems, and he got even bigger problem when the surgery failed. So this is a brief description of this chapter. And in the end, there is also and after these surgeries, basically, he signed up for the Natchez Race 444 race, which is a long distance bicycle race, after 2 knee surgeries. So David is a bad motherfucker. Evolution number 8. This is the last evolution. I love this quote on the first page of evolution number 8. In Gogglish terms, greatness is a state of letting go of all your faults and imperfections, scavenging every last bit of strength and energy, and putting it the fuck to use to excel at whatever you set your mind to. Powerful quote. This is the very short evolution. It's like 7 pages. And he describes in here the first person to ever go into space with this balloons with helium. So basically he got onto this cage, he inflated the balloons, and it was like a self-mission. He raced up into the sky until he crossed the line where the blue sky that we see every day turns into black, full pitch black. And this evolution ends up with, quote, "It's time to level up and seek out that blue to black line, the line that separates good from great. It is within each one of us." And last chapter, chapter 9, Ringing Out the Soul. I also really like this chapter because I'm gonna put this book away. In the last 9th chapter of this book, David writes about his smoke jumping training, what he had to endure, how he helped other people get through that training, and what problems also did he himself faced and how he solved them. So that's a brief description, I would say, of these 2 books. As I said, I read these books over 10 times. These are really great books in my opinion, and I recommend you watch. Okay, so this was a brief description of these 2 books. I recommend you really read it, because these are 2 amazing books. You can search for them online for free, or you can buy a paperback. Me personally, I like to have a book in my hands. Also, it's easier to just circle up the quotes I would like to remember. So yeah, that's it for today. This was also my first longer video. I don't know how long it is right now, because I'm still recording it. But I feel my throat a little. It hurts a little. So yeah, I'm glad I recorded it. And still progressing in terms of talk to camera skills. I believe I made a really good thumbnail for this video. It is also an upgrade. And if you've reached this far, thank you from the bottom of my heart. Really, honestly, thank you. If you like it's an off topic, but if you like my protein shake recipe, go visit my YouTube channel and scroll down. It's a quick video, but watch it if you want, and see you next time.